Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Women's Football Spotlight. It's myself, Dan Conway, and my co-host, Ross Ballock, and we're going to cover the latest talking points in the WSL. So we'll go through the latest games, Arsenal West Ham's crazy game, and we'll also go through and talk about some of the talking points, the potential of no relegation as they restructure the leagues, possibly, Casey Stoney's situation, and we'll see what else comes up. So let's get into the results from the weekend, Ross. Arsenal 4, West Ham 3. Do you want to start us off with what you thought of the game?
It's one of those classic games, isn't it? We all have a 4-3 scoreline. Considering I was 14 team, it was even better because I could just watch it and enjoy it. So, I've got to say, West Ham, they must be kicking themselves. They were 2-0 up really quickly, then they were 3-1 up. But Arsenal, from 2-0 down and then 3-1 down, they went from 3-1 down to 4-3 up in 6 minutes. It reminded me a little bit like 2005 Champions League final, Liverpool, Milan, 3 quick goals. And it just completely, for West Ham, you could see it just totally took the wind out of their sails. What a brilliant game. Does anything stands out for you?
Well, I think it was great to see Chloe Kelly get her first goal for Arsenal. And I think she got the assist as well, I'm right. And it was great to see her. We said just recently that she needs to hit the ground running. And you can tell she's got the heart, the hunger in her eyes. She's got that fight again. So I'm pleased for her that the move has given her that zest. But hopefully this will be the start. Like I've said, there's only 8 games left now of the season. So she really needs to continue that form to guarantee herself in the England squad and to be a starting player possibly. So really pleased to see her get the goal. And I think it was her goal that effectively sparked the comeback. Yeah, great game. Especially like I said, if you're neutral, really end-to-end mad game. And I loved, obviously Martinez scored, but if you have a look at Martinez, I think it was her second goal, the second West Ham goal, the touch she took for it, the control of it was lovely. And I know they got a little bit overshadowed because Arsenal, stories about Arsenal, they're a bigger club, they won, but some really, really nice performance from Martinez.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that Arsenal were a big club than West Ham. I'd just like was down with that. But yeah, I mean, for Sky, what a dream. That was the evening kickoff, obviously, all the Premier League, no Premier League on this weekend with, it being an FA Cup weekend, for them to have that prime evening slot for that game to be produced. If you're the TV crew, you are absolutely loving that. For me, I actually really loved Katie McCabe's goal. That finish, on the byline, she's 5-6 yards to the left of the post on the byline. You could just tell goalkeeper was just not expecting that. Absolutely not. And, it's one of those you think, has that taken a touch and gone in? But no, she's hit that strike pure and that's gone straight in past the keeper with such power. You just couldn't react. So for me, I actually thought that for me was my favourite moment of the game. That finish was just unreal. Just the cheek as well to even try it.
Yeah, it was a tremendous finish. And I think everyone thought she was, from that angle, everyone, 100% of the time people cross. Yes, so for her to go for this shot, I think it caught, the keeper will feel she should have done better, but it was I think it caught everyone off guard and fell into Kate McCabe's favour. And, she's a fan favourite. She's a WSL favourite. She's an icon of the league, a bit like the Panto villain, maybe. But yeah, great to see her get a goal. Great for the reputation of the league.
Yeah, just a great game. Great game to watch.
Do we go and move on to Brighton? Brighton 2, Chelsea 2. So Chelsea been steamrolling the league. What are your thoughts on that result?
Well, fair play Brighton. I don't think that was a result anybody was predicting. We had Chelsea bringing the second of the big January signings into the team finally. Obviously, Kira Walsh has been able to kind of hit the ground running. Germa has been injured, and so this was her WSL debut. When you spend that much money on a player, I get it. They have to play, but you do wonder whether away from home against a Brighton team who've had an okay season, but who I think on paper we probably all expected Chelsea to be able to put away. Players have been away on international, so she wouldn't have trained with everybody in the squad for that long. You do wonder if maybe they could have eased her in a bit more rather than throwing her in from the start. But I get it. When you sign a marquee player like that, she's got to play. And, it's not like any of the goals were her fault or anything like that. But you do wonder if maybe just a new partnership or a new combination back there had a little bit to do with it. Another assist for Nikita Paris coming after we spoke about her getting back into the England squad. For me, I think both Chelsea goals were really good, but I don't know if you've got anything that stands out.
Yeah, well, the Baltimore's goal for that volley, tremendous hit, just such a great strike, a great finish for her, who I believe she's a defender. That's not often she's probably one of the best goals, if not the best goal she'll probably ever score, but great volley. And like I said, it's a funny one with Germa because it's possible they probably have rushed her back. And I get it with you that it helps with ticket sales, helps attendances. But Millie Bright and her, I'm sure they've been practicing in training, but it's going to take time for their partnership to gel and work together. But, a defender of Millie Bright's quality and obviously Germa, like from all the reports and the things and the highlights and clips I've seen, she does look the real deal. But it is interesting. It's typical, isn't it? The kiss of death almost, like, when you have a big signing, there's always sometimes a little bit of you'd expect, maybe fans are expecting a clean sheet, but that happens. I'm sure within months we'll be talking about how incredible player she is and the formidable partnership that Millie Bright and Germa will form. But yeah,
I think it was just, Millie Bright played for England against Spain
just a few days before
Wednesday, I think it was. I don't know what day it's today. So, they probably maybe if Millie Bright plays Tuesday, Wednesday, it's going to be Wednesday, Thursday till she's back at Chelsea in training. So maybe they get one session together, and you wonder whether that was really necessary. For me, the first goal from Baltimore, the finish is incredible, and if you've not seen it yet, get on the WSL YouTube channel. You can see all the highlights there. They do a really good job of putting full games on as well. But all for me, it's just the quick feet from James. Lauren James is such a small space in the box. Quick feet, keeping it away from the defender, and then dinking that ball in. It really was a great goal all round. And then the second goal for the equaliser, Chelsea equaliser to make it 2-2 for me, was all Agibeva Jones. Defender she rolls the defender, and it was just it was a really great piece of skill that led to that equalising goal. And it was just again a lot like we spoke about Russo last week for England, kind of making that goal for Jess Park this time. Agibeva Jones, great role of defender, great assist, and I don't think it necessarily changes anything in the WSL. I don't think it changes anything for the title race. I think Chelsea have got that cushion. But I think for some teams, with Chelsea on the horizon in the Women's Champions League, I think maybe that will give teams some hope that they can pick up some points from Chelsea through the rest of the season. Like I said, with Chelsea playing them in the Man City playing them in the Champions League, maybe there's something that they can take from that, especially over two legs, that could maybe see a little bit of a surprise. I think that's quite clear that I felt that they're probably going to go on and win the league easily and possibly win the Champions League as well. But hopefully some teams can take some stock from Brighton's performance, and maybe we'll see some great competition for the rest of the season at least, and they'll be pushing it more.
Yeah, I think it will breathe a bit of confidence in the other teams, because really, and they were saying that was probably the first game where they've put a foot wrong. Up until this point, they've just looked flawless. But if that's them putting a foot wrong, doing a draw, it's probably still worrying for the rest of the teams. Yeah, I think you're right. It is in the bag. I can't see it not being Chelsea's league title this year. But yeah, hopefully a bit of confidence for other teams. Agibeva Jones, I agree. The turn for the goal was just delightful, and it just set up the goal was it James's goal, set up on the plate for her. So yeah, I really like her. I can see why Serena Wiegman keeps choosing her for the squad, though we are Beth England fans, but Agibeva Jones, she is looking good. She's young. She's a real promising talent for the England team. So yeah, a good point for Brighton.
I was going to say, speaking of Beth England, do we want to go on to...
Yeah, well, let's quickly jump to Tottenham then, yeah.
Tottenham, Man City.
Tottenham won. They lost to Man City. Man City 2-1. Do you want to touch on that game, that result, Beth England?
Yeah, obviously another goal for Beth England, but obviously Man City took the lead. I think Tottenham show some real character to kind of come back because the first goal for me came against the run of play. I thought Spurs were the better team to start off with, and they had a couple of long range efforts, but again, like I spoke about Firmino last season, she's one of my favourite players to watch. I think she's 20, and she's going to be a superstar.
She looks dangerous.
Picks up the ball, drives at the fullback, realizes can't make that long run all by herself, and just slows the game down and then speeds it back up again, a little give and go, and then the lovely ball into the box for Miedema to score, and Man City go 1-0 against the run of play, and you start thinking to yourself, poor Tottenham, is this going to be a long afternoon for them? But they really, really fought back.
Yeah, great to see Miedema on the score sheet again. Another, obviously, a WSL favourite. But, I'm really pleased. I think Man City was a great choice of team when she had to move on. I think Arsenal may be regretting letting her leave now. Obviously, Jonas Seiderville leaving. It would have been interesting to see how Slagers would have done with Miedema. But things happen. She's at Man City, and I think great to see her back getting fitness again and scoring a goal that will give her a great boost of confidence. And it'll be good to see her have a good last half of the season finish for her. But yeah, Fujino, great assist, great goal. She looked great. And I tell you what I really like. Sometimes I feel is a bit underrated. Her Japanese teammate, Hasegawa for Man City, I'm trying to think of the term, industrious, like centre midfielder, like quite a hard-working, quite defensive, breaks up player. Really, really rate her when she's on song. I think she's really good. Nice, two really great Japanese players there.
Do you like her because she reminds you of yourself, or we played father side? Ran forever,
a little bit.
Ran forever, snapped in at people's ankles.
That's it.
Yeah, is that what it is?
What I lacked in technical ability, I had to make up for it in work rate. So yes,
and
maybe I can identify.
Well, I think obviously we touched on Japan last week beating the USA, but I think it bodes well for Japan for the next World Cup. I can't see them not qualifying, and I think there'll be a team for people to take notice of. They've got quite a few players in the WSL at the moment, and that I think that could make it exciting. Obviously, we want to see competitive games in those big tournaments, the World Cup, European Championships, Copa America, whatever it may be. Those international tournaments is really what drives popularity for the women's game. And so we want to see as much competitiveness as possible. And so, we spoke last week about Japan really always having a good women's team, but they've really got some great players there and could be a team to look out for. Obviously, for me, a couple of things kind of stood out for me were Spurs with 29% possession. And I don't think that is unusual for them this season. I do wonder whether that's something that is sustainable. I don't know about you, but how would you feel as a fan if you were regularly seeing your team have allow the opposition to have 2/3 more possession throughout the game?
Yeah, it's a really valid point, because especially when you've got Beth England up front, you've got such an asset. It feels like you want the ball to be at her as much as possible. So you think more possession really is going to result in more goals, giving her more opportunities. And if Serena Wiegman is listening, 1 goal she scored again, so that's 8 goals and 1 assist in the league this season. So she's given Serena Wiegman a real good problem and a headache there, hopefully for the summer. So long may she continue. But yeah, it's a good point. I do think he's a good manager, but I feel that they need to work on it. They don't have if you have a look at they definitely need to look at their recruitment. I think their team, they're doing it because they don't necessarily feel they've got the quality against other teams. But they're going to have to recruit well in the summer, especially for Beth England. Like, I think she'll want to, if she doesn't see progression at Tottenham, she's still young enough and good enough to get a big club move.
Oh, I'd have her back at Liverpool. No, she's there on loan a few seasons ago now, but scored 10 goals in 16 games. Crying out for that. I think Another thing that kind of came away from that game was Miedema. She had a header cleared off the line by Neville, and it was a really great clear. It's acrobatic, but there were some question marks about whether the ball was already over the line. And Vivian Miedema did say, the conversation came round to goal line technology in WSL. I have my opinion. What's your opinion on goal line technology?
I think it's only a matter of time. I think they should have it. I think it is a cost issue, I imagine. I don't know to what extent cost, but I want to make a point of researching the cost for that. But I think, especially after the summer, we'll have a European Championship. It will elevate the women's game even more. And I think it's just going to increase the commercial side of things, the aspects. So I think there'll be more money, more funding. So I think clubs, naturally, it will evolve. And I think goal line technology now is essential. We can't be pushing the WSL as the greatest, women's football league in the world and not have goal line technology. VAR is another aspect. That's another discussion. But goal line technology has the ball cross the line, yes or no, is essential. What about you?
So for me, I've done the research, Dan. Don't worry, mate.
Thank you.
So the goal line system that the Premier League uses is £250,000 to install for, at each ground. So in terms of costs, I think £250,000 could probably be spent in better places in the WSL right now. I don't think there are enough of those goal line moments to justify that cost at the moment. I think the other thing you've got is we've seen a lot of the WSL teams don't play in one ground over the course of the season. Sometimes they'll go into men's team stadiums. Sometimes they're at their home grounds, in inverted commas, that are generally kind of maybe lower league or club teams facilities, and that's tricky. If that club isn't in a league that is using goal line technology, it's not their place to kind of install that. City were playing away this season. Man City are lucky in that they've got their own ground at the Etihad campus, the Academy Stadium. I think Leicester play all their home games at the King Power. Aston Villa played at Villa Park today, which would already have goal line technology fitted. But what you can't have is 1 week at the WSL where 2 or 3 teams are playing at Premier League grounds and 3 games have goal line technology and the other 3 don't. And so I think that's tricky. So for me, along with the cost, 250 grand a pop, the logistics of it, for me, I think the money could be spent in a better way. And I think that just logistically it doesn't work. We all see how silly it is, with the Carabao Cup, where, there's VAR in some rounds at some grounds, but not at others. And it just doesn't work. It makes a mockery of the competition. So for me, I think the WSL is ready for that, for those reasons.
When you think of it practically, I think you're correct. And I think if you're a Leicester, for example, Crystal Palace, who are struggling in relegation, but if it was a choice of, if you gave the fans a vote and said, right, would you rather take a big signing for £200,000, £250,000 and have a top player or goal line technology, I bet you most would vote. If they had to choose between one or the other, they would vote for a player. So if you gave Leicester City an example, they wanted to buy Beth England, have a real goal for it, they'd take that over goal line technology. But hopefully, like I said, come the summer, as the women's game gets more commercial, more popular, hopefully in the not too distant future, they'll be able to afford it. It'll just be a given, won't even be a question. And I suppose you think the budget typically for a WSL team was about a year ago was roughly between £2 to £4 million for an operating budget to the top teams. Let's say Chelsea operating at about £4 million a year budget, where the lower teams were £1.5 million, £2 million at the most. So you think that's a big part of the budget, £250,000. So right now, logistically, economically, it just doesn't seem like it's going to happen, but hopefully in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we know that's a one-off cost, but for some clubs it might not be. Like I said, it might be a one-off cost for Man City, who play in the same home ground every week. But for other teams who maybe play 2 or 3 of their games at the men's team stadium or at a main stadium, and then play the rest of the games at another. It's not fully feasible. Yet maybe one day, I mean, like I said, for me as well, I just don't think we see enough of those incidents to really warrant it. I mean, actually, I wonder if, just kind of an idea out there, do you remember like quite a few seasons ago in Europe, they had like an assistant referee next to the goal, and I wonder whether
Yeah,
that couldn't be a solution.
temporary solution.
Yeah, like a temporary solution for the next kind of 4 or 5 years until more teams maybe have their own stadium or have a stadium within the complex of their clubs, like Man City do, that would allow them to make that a permanent fixture. I don't see why. I mean, I think that's something that could be implemented for the next round of games if they wanted to.
Yeah, it seems a way more affordable solution and a realistic solution for the
Yeah.
foreseeable future until the time's right. Yeah, good shout. Okay, should we move on to a couple of the other games? So, Man United 2, Leicester 0. Any thoughts on this game?
The one that instantly stands out to me is Maya Letitia's pass to Ella Toon for the first goal. So I'm going to be really nerdy here. So out in Germany, there's an analytics company, and it's started by an ex-player and an analyst. They have something that they call packing stat. It's an item of data like XG, and what it is, it's how many your packings for at the end of the game is like how many every time you play a pass, how many players have you taken out of the game? How many players has
Great
your
stat, isn't it?
how many players has your pass taken out the game and made it virtually impossible for them to have an effect on the phase of play? Generally, in most instances, the team with the higher packing score will win the game. And I looked at that pass, and she gets the ball on the edge of her own 18-yard box, and with one pass at a team, takes 7 players out the game. Just 7 Leicester players just bypassed. And I just saw that, and I was just like, that is absolutely unbelievable. And then obviously Toon takes turn, plays the ball through to Malad. I mean, at that point, I would say, like, why are all of Leicester's players in the Man United half of the pitch? Like, nobody's retreated at any point. But, I mean, I'm not sure any of them would have caught up with Malad anyway for that first goal.
Yeah.
But just that pass from Letizia on the edge of her own box takes 7 Leicester players straight out of the game, and that's it. 2 passes, balls at the back of the net, 1-0.
Yeah, it was an incredible pass. Kudos to Maya Letizia for that. On Letizia, I think her and Millie Turner forming quite a formidable partnership. I know you're going to share the stat about their clean sheets, because I think this is really interesting, the turnaround that's happened at Man United.
Yeah, so 15 WSL games now, 6 goals conceded all season for Man United.
Wow.
And on Sunday, it was their 10th clean sheet at the league. And neither of them get into the England team.
Well, Millie Turner's been making the squad. I think she made the last squad. I can't remember if she made the squad before. I know she's what? I think she's 30.
She's a bit of a fallback as well for England. But
Yeah. Oh, let's quickly cover this. So she plays centre-back for Man United, clearly doing a great job. But Serena Wingman's really, I don't know, she seems to want her to, when she utilise her, she likes to do it at right-back. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, she was asked about it when the squad was announced before the last 2 games against Portugal and Spain. And, I think it was put to her, basically what we're saying now. United have great defence this season. Are you maybe looking at using Maya Letizia as a centre-back? And Wiegman just very... I appreciate it. But she very bluntly just said, we see her as a fullback. And I don't know if that's because they are just set on Williamson and Bright, and that is the partnership that they are going into the European Championships with, or whether they are just set on the fact that once Alex Greenwood's back, maybe only one of them will make way. Maybe Williamson nudges into midfield as they were doing just before one of the last tournaments. I think it was the European Championships, the last ones in England. They started nudging Williamson into midfield with Walsh and Stanway and playing Greenwood and Bright. So Whether they're thinking about going back to that, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's like, in the 90s, you had Pallister and Bruce together, but neither of them really picked up very many international caps. For me, obviously it's a formidable partnership, and it, I think we all know it's not just those two; it's the goalkeeper as well. It's the players next to them and in front of them. The whole team are making this contribution. And for me, it's not just the clean sheets, but just Manchester United are just having a really good season this season. And I thought Mark Skinner did a brilliant job at Birmingham under some really difficult circumstances at times. And then when he went over to America, I thought he was great there. And I thought it was a really astute appointment from United. But last season, fans were chanting getting sacked in the morning and, paper P45s being held up. And, it got a bit tough last season. But I think he deserves credit along with his players for really being able to finish the season. They lost some players this summer, brought some players in. And, you cannot argue with the results this season. Like I said, 10 clean sheets in 15 games is unbelievable.
Yeah, I think they lost Mary Earps, they lost Garcia, just to name two, and there'll be more. And I think, and obviously they lost Russo further before, but I remember thinking, what are Man United doing? It just looked like a downward spiral. But you're right, credit to him. Like, I remember towards the end of last season, they did dip and they weren't the same Man United, but he has turned it around, and credit to him and the players.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really difficult. Sometimes it's really easy to forget we're a really young club in women's football. And I know not everybody, and this is something maybe we'll get onto later, but not everyone agreed with the way that they got into the WSL. But, really, they've been a professional team for maybe 5 or 6 years. Casey Stoney, who we'll speak about later as well, she did a great job at United and got them up from the Championship and established them in the WSL. But they are still a young club as a women's team. So I don't necessarily think that finishing 5th last year was really, a disgrace. I understand that the fans want high standards, and on paper, you'd probably say that team was better than 5th last season. I think as fans, sometimes with individual players and teams, we forget that there are other players on the pitch, other people involved in football. Last season, Man United weren't going out and playing a team of 11 nobodies. So there were 11 players in front of them. And that's why we love football. We love football because, it's a sport where you have to win your battles. You have to win your 1v1s, and you do that on your own, but also you do that with 10 of your teammates, and you all chip in. And it's easy for us to forget that, that, like I said, they're a young club. Other teams were fighting hard last season, and I don't think it's necessarily that bad. I mean, but when you look at the talent that has left that club in the last 2, 3, 4 seasons, I think it's brilliant. You mentioned there Garcia and Earps and Russo, but also Lauren James was there.
Yeah.
Imagine what that Man United team could be if they could have held all this team, the players together. They obviously lost Kate Zellum in the summer. In England international. She'd gone over to the States. Season before that, they lost to Batil, the Spanish left back who went to Barcelona.
Doing great.
They lost some really good players, and just those England players alone. You take that United team that's playing now, and you put in Mary Earps, Alicia Russo, and Laura James into that squad.
Got a league-winning team, or give Chelsea at least a run for their money.
Yeah, 100%. So kudos to them all. And that's
going back to
that.
I was going to touch back on Serena Wiegman, actually. Maya Letizia, and want to use her as a right back. Now, if I remember correctly, she used to play at right back and centre back for Brighton before she moved to Man United, and she was a decent right back and centre back. So obviously when she moved to, I think she played more at right back if I remember correctly, but then obviously when she went to Man U, she's adapted her game, become a solid centre back. So maybe Serena Wiegman still remembers her good form from that. Was impressed then, but when you're playing week in, week out, it's centre back and never at right back. It's a strange one. It's not often we see someone deployed in a different position than they played at club and it work out. So I think she needs to be careful.
But also, I think if you ask Letizia, do you want to be in the England squad as a centre back, or sorry, if you ask, do you want to be in the squad as a right back or not in the squad?
Of
It's a really
course.
simple answer, isn't it? So I'm sure the player doesn't mind, and I think it's something you can make work if the coach is having honest discussions with the player. If the player's saying, "What do I need to do to get into this team as a centre back? That I want to play as centre back. What do I need to get?" And they're getting that feedback. I think honest discussions will help. And
Yeah.
I'm sure I'd like to think that that is happening. I think communication between the staff and the players is very good about most things. Yeah, I mean, I don't think something would be too worrying at the moment. And it's not as if we're blessed with right backs behind Lucy Bronze. So sometimes you just need to get your best players into the squad and make it work.
Fair enough. Right. So, well, before we touch on the last couple of games, well, we've touched on Casey Stoney. Let's cover her. Obviously, she's been in the news this week. When she was recently, well, before she got the Canada job, she was sacked. When she was sacked, she found out when she was traveling, she'd been living in California, I was traveling to UK, and then while she was in the UK, found out through her agent she'd lost her job. And because she'd lost her job, terminated immediate effect, her working visa were affected and she could no longer go back to the US. But obviously, you've got a home there. And she said it effectively made, because it was so sudden, her and her children, like her family, homeless. What do you think? Thoughts on that?
I think what makes it particularly sad is they'd come back to England to attend a funeral.
Oh, jeez.
I don't think it's a great look for the club in San Diego.
I think so.
It's not a great look. I think you, me, we have bosses, people who watch this, we have bosses, we have companies we work for, and you would like to think that your employers would treat you with a bit more respect than what seems to have happened there. It is also tricky, football is not a regular industry. Contracts are signed, but you see players being transferred, you see managers, coaches being sacked regularly. I think probably less regularly in the women's game than in the men's game. But still, yes, I think for me, it's a really sad situation. As a Liverpool fan, I'm actually a little bit gutted that she got that Canada job so quickly. It's a great move from Canada. Don't get me wrong. They needed somebody to come and replace Bev Priestman and to move on from what happened at the Olympics. But, Casey Stoney's former Liverpool women's player, I think she'd been great to come in and take over that team. But yeah, it is sad. It was made, I think she obviously felt it was made a lot more difficult by the fact that it was almost 2 years that she was out in San Diego by herself while they were trying to arrange visas for her partner and her children to get out there and to be able to live together as a family. It's nothing worse when you have a family and having to be away from them. And I guess some people at that point would say, well, why did you take the job in the first place? You've got to make a living as well. But that's the job that you've been offered. I think was it COVID when she took the job? I think that might have made
I think
things a
so. I
bit
think she said
difficult.
you're right. She got the job, took like over a year to get visas, and then she had
For two
visas.
months. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like 8 months of finally living all together, and that's when she got the sack. So
I think what's most sad about that is you'd have expected that conversation to be done face to face.
yeah,
If the way she's described it has happened, I mean, no reason not to believe her. It hasn't been handled well. And I think what made it worse is she said that her sacking immediately cancelled the visa for her and her family, so they couldn't even go back to the house to kind of put their affairs in order and to do what they need to do there. Yeah, like I said, it's not a great look for the franchise, is it? But I'm really glad that she's found a way a way to be able to go back. Obviously, a lot of Canadian players don't play in the Canadian League. They will play in the WSL or the NWSL. So I think as a family, they've been able to stay in their home in California and base itself from
yeah,
there. But yeah, so you're glad it's all worked out. But yeah, it doesn't look great, does it? And you
yeah. I
just
think
you
that's the
just hope
benefit of
maybe some lessons are learned. Again, you know, Not that it's any real excuse, because there are very experienced people in San Diego, but you do hope that maybe they've learned from that. But they're again a fairly new franchise in the league, and you'd like to think maybe this is just something that went wrong in this instant. And I mean, we could talk about the visas and the emotional intelligence all we want, but actually, I don't think she deserved to lose the job in the first place.
I think they had lost a hit. Pretty poor form. I think she'd won something like 4 games in 10. Season before, she'd done really well.
And then first,
they hit the playoffs the season before.
Yeah.
It did seem a bit harsh, and that's why I think football can be harsh, where it's like it's a results-based game. But loyal, like, hang on, you'd had a stellar season just the season before, and the same manager who hasn't become rubbish overnight. For whatever X, Y, and Z reason they're struggling for form, you'd have thought she was maybe deserved more time. This is where I think Man City set the bar. They kind of like the gold standard when it comes to player treatment. So, I know what I do like about Man City is that they have a department for player welfare. So obviously back in the day, it was like, the players had to sort themselves out for homes, accommodation, visas, all sorts. It's kind of a lot to deal with, where Man City realised that this is a big headache, especially if you're trying to attract, the top talent. And that can obviously be foreign talent that comes aboard to the WSL, and so they take player welfare quite seriously. So all these things, they've got player liaison, like they've got people whose job it is to make sure you're sorted for when you come visit your first several months while you get settled and started. So hopefully other clubs will look at their standard, their example, and kind of follow suit. But I get it also, it's about budget. Not all clubs can have a department like that are dedicated to players settling in and player welfare.
Yeah, and I'm not sure Chloe Kelly would agree that they're the gold standard.
Chloe Kelly, tell us what the Arsenal welfare, the player welfare is like compared to Man City. Geez, that's good
Go back
point.
to the WSL games for the weekend.
Yes.
Still got more, haven't we? Well,
where
do you want to go next?
Shall we do Aston Villa's demise continues? Aston Villa 0, Everton 2, Ross.
You tell me what's going on there.
Couple of things. Carla Ward, I was a big fan of. I never felt they should have got rid of her. I don't know if she left or you never quite know. When someone says they left, did they leave? Well, it's that. No, that was a big, go back a year. That was a mistake. I thought she settled the ship, did a really good job, got together a good squad of players, was doing quite well. One player that went under the radar, didn't get enough praise, and just recently left, Kenza Dali. She was a solid box-to-box centre midfielder, engine, made them tick, but didn't always get the plaudits. And it's no coincidence that since I know she left a couple of weeks back, but she wasn't playing for some time before that. I think that's definitely one factor. And they've got some really good players. I was looking at, Rachel Daly, obviously superstar, Jordan Nobbs, experienced England international, been at plenty of clubs, great player. Katie Robinson, who struggled to get games as well, but a promising young English talent. Lucy Parker, great defender. Ebony Salmon, who was a really promising striker that's kind of struggled to make it in America, come back to Villa.
Yeah.
And there's other players I can't even think of off the top of my head, but a few things. So I'm not entirely sure. What about you? What about yourself, Ross? What do you think's causing?
It's an odd one. You wonder if maybe they've been a little bit, I don't know, unlucky, naive in recruitment. I mean, the two that really stand out to me is Katie Robinson, who I'm a big fan of.
Yeah.
I think I was there when she made her England debut. I can't remember who it was against, but I remember seeing her come off the bench, and she really got me out of my seat. Very direct, very quick, willing to take a player on. Now, what I would say, she's only 22. Her career is by no means over yet. But this year, I think she'd probably say not been her best. Came off before the hour mark of this game. You mentioned Ebony Salmon, another one who was in the England squad fairly young under Serena Wiegman. Has played WSL, NWSL. But again, not consistently starting games for Villa. It's a tough one. I mean, I think this game in particular, I think they'll be really disappointed. Not just disappointed that they're 11th in the league out of 12 teams, but they'll be really disappointed that they played the game at Villa Park.
Yeah.
And then 4,000 people there. So a great opportunity to play at the stadium and to play for a decent crowd. But actually, even both goals just were the first goal from Mjelda, and I think that's how you pronounce the name, but we should probably learn to how to do that if we're going to talk about it. But it was a good finish, but it came from a corner that Villa just couldn't clear. They had two, three chances to clear, and fair play Everton. They kept the pressure on, and it was a good finish. Obviously, Villa's starting goalkeeper had to come off like 54, 55 minutes. So the substitute keeper comes on, and even that goal, like, again, a clever finish from Hayashi to put the ball into the roof of the net, seeing there's a defender on the line. She gets the opportunity because Talbot just drops the ball at her feet and gives her that opportunity. And I think
It's a bit of a howler, wasn't it?
really disappointed. Yeah. I mean, what I would say is Everton, that's 2 weeks in a row. They've put on a really good performance. They were they were really well organised against Chelsea for the international break. And that was a much closer game than I think people thought it was going to be. But they were really well organised, really well set up as a team, defended really well, and then took their opportunity to hit on the counter-attack as much as possible. And kind of saw the same again this week, just really well organised team. Good result from really good 3 points away from them.
Yeah, great 3 points. Well, I guess we'll see. Let's hopefully they get it together. They might get fortunate that Crystal Palace they've got a better squad, and they might scrape over the line. But Villa, with the team they've got, they should be doing better. They're underachieving as a team in the WSL right now.
Yeah, I think they've got a bigger. It's 4 points, which obviously isn't a lot, but I think they've got enough of a cushion. Crystal Palace have only picked up 6 points all season, so for them to make up 4 points, they're going to need another 6 points to overhaul. I don't think Villa need to worry about relegation this season, and probably not next season. So I think whoever comes up is probably going to be the favourite to go back down. And we're seeing that not just in the Premier League, in the WSL. Last season, Bristol City came up, went down. This season, Palace have come up and look most likely to come back down. So I don't think Villa need to worry about that. But I do think they should be concerned. Like you said, on paper, that's a really strong squad. And on paper, that squad should be finishing higher than that.
Is it any surprise Crystal Palace parted ways with their manager this week? Or was it inevitable?
No, I think it was a surprise. I think, firstly, what I'd say is, get it. We see in football all the time when teams aren't performing or are struggling, you think that might be something that is the right decision. For me, what left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth is how quickly the replacement was named, which tells me they were probably talking to him while she was still in the job, which, is the prerogative of the club. Again, it just doesn't have a great look to it. But also, what do you think Crystal Palace were expecting to happen this season?
That's my point. I think they actually have been playing fairly good football for a team to get promoted. All things in perspective, yeah, they weren't going to have the best squad, but they actually tried. They were trying to play front foot football. They were trying to attack, and they weren't just sitting back and having, parking the bus. So I respected that, and they at times played quite well and looked decent and looked like they might have enough to stay up, but I think it's a case of the squad and just couldn't get the results because the football's all right. So I think, what's this new manager going to do? I don't necessarily think I'm with you. I think it was a bit harsh.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to change much. I think it's really sad for Laura Kaminsky because, she's rated quite highly in the game as a coach.
She got them promoted. You know what I mean? That's an achievement. She didn't get rubbish overnight.
Yeah, exactly. But obviously, yeah, I don't think it's going to change anything. Like I said, I think it's probably slightly too late. If they were going to do this, maybe they should have done it a lot earlier, or maybe during the mid-season break, where the manager can work with them a bit more. But again, I hope not. I don't see why not. But you wonder if maybe Liverpool parting ways with Beard, and then being the next opponents, they thought, well, they're possibly not going to be their best either. So, it's quite a opportune moment to do it, but I don't think it worked. And the game itself between Palace and Liverpool, it it was a lot better to watch from a Liverpool perspective. Unfortunately, that's
Yeah.
who I spent a lot of the game watching. But yeah, for me, Liverpool played in a different shape under Beard. They'd been playing a lot of three at the back, 3-5-2. And for me, it looked like they wanted a bit more control, a bit more possession of the ball. Definitely a lot more front-footed. I definitely saw a bit more endeavour and purpose in play. I thought, for me, still when I watch Liverpool play, I think there's still a bit of disconnection in their pressing, especially when teams play out between forward unit and the units behind them. For some reason, it almost looks as if like the forwards are going by themselves and leaving gaps behind them, and people aren't kind of filling in. And so there are a few times where Palace were able to just clip the ball forward into the middle third, and the midfielder kind of just put the body between the ball and the defender and kind of shield it and get out a lot easier than you'd like to see. Did you see the game? Was anything stood out to you?
No, to be fair, watched the highlights for it. It was a scrappy goal, but they got 3 points for Liverpool. So yeah, I'm pleased. And it's always good after you've lost a manager. In that limbo period of getting sorted and next replacement, sometimes it can be a strange time. But I was just pleased they got the 3 points and they've kind of pushed themselves slightly further up, making sure they're safe. So yeah,
I
an
thought the
ugly
goal
3
was
points in a
lucky.
sense. Yeah.
I thought the goal was lucky. You could clearly see that one of the Liverpool players grabbed off the Crystal Palace defender's leg to
Yeah.
which couldn't move. But obviously the referee's not seen it, the assistant's not seen it. Shall I tell you who would have seen that, Dan?
Go on.
An official by the goal. Probably would have seen that.
Solution sorted.
Yeah, get on it, WSL. You can thank me later. But yeah, for me, it was just nice to see Liverpool looking to be a bit more ambitious, looking to create more opportunities. And while it's not all there, hopes come together. Like I said to you last week, my ambition for my team is to win that mini league behind those top four teams now. I think those top four have pulled away.
Yeah.
Obviously, Chelsea are out there. Man United have got a nice little cushion as well as second. I think third or fourth, they've pulled away. I would like to see Liverpool use the rest of the season to get fifth. Obviously, Amber Whiteley has come out and has said that she wants the job full time. How do you think that looks when an assistant manager says that kind of a day or two after the manager's sacked?
Yeah, it's a hard one, that, isn't it? Because it puts pressure on the club. And obviously she's been a good servant and they probably appreciate doing the caretaker role. But has she got enough experience? Is she the right person? Matt Beard, I felt, did a good job. He's got big shoes to fill. They're going to obviously take their time. I think it's maybe a little bit desperate, but fair play to her. Putting her intentions out there. You never know. I guess they might do what happened with Arsenal, with Renee Slagers, where they kind of left it. They were looking, but then Slagers did such a good job, she convinced them. So maybe that could happen for her. But your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is, in her situation particularly, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. It's not like she was brought to the club by Matt Beard. She's been an assistant and first team coach there for under a few managers. I think this is her second time as interim manager. Obviously, the win, like you said, really puts her case forward. Like I said, obviously there's no danger of them falling out the league. And so I'm quite happy to let her have her case forward. I'm quite happy for Whiteley to do that. There is a little part of me that wonders whether Nick Cushion could be tempted back to the WSL. He's back in England, I believe.
Yeah.
I heard him being interviewed on British radio a few weeks ago. I think he might be back. I don't know.
I guess
pretty
my
sure
question
he is.
It's been a few years since he was in the WSL. Yeah, he did win the WSL, so and he's had great experience now at New York City with the men's team. So yeah, great shout, great candidate.
Yeah, if he was interested, I think it's time for Liverpool to put some money into the squad, beef up that budget a little bit, and really try and break more consistently into that top four in the WSL. And I think he's got the nous and the experience not only of building club, because he was at City and he's been inside that City group for a long time now. You know, he was City Women. He also worked at the City's academy with the boys beforehand, and then obviously has moved on as an assistant manager at New York City, and then a manager. But yeah, he's back in England now. I think if he was partway interested, I think it's a conversation you couldn't not have, just because the caliber, the experience that he has. I think it's only due diligence. He, for me, would be my first choice right now. But like I said, I'm more than happy to, 3 points on Sunday. If Amber Whiteley can go get another 3 points, like I said,
He's
I
making
think
a case.
Yeah, exactly, and I'm quite happy for her to have that opportunity. She's been a great servant at the club.
Yeah, let's watch this space. We'll do an episode on potential candidates. Last point then, I think we've covered all the games. Let's talk about, just in the news today, the potential increase in the league structure, the top two leagues to 16 teams. Obviously, it's all kind of, lots of ideas have been thrown out, but one was to increase to 16 leagues for the next 4 years. Was it for 2 years for no relegations or something like that? What are your thoughts on this? Did you get a chance to catch the news on this?
Yeah, I did. I think this is a really tough one. This is a really tough question because, like we just said about when we talk about Japan and the World Cup, if you want to drive the game forward, you want to see close competitive matches. Fortunately, if we are being wholeheartedly honest, in the WSL at the moment, there is a gap between a number of clubs and the rest. As we just said about Palace and Bristol City, this is potentially going to be 2 years in a row that the team that has come up from the Championship has gone straight back down. And also, we can see in men's football, too much football is being played. And, you can oversaturate the market, and you can also bring physical issues to players. What we as fans want to see is we want to see the most competitive football played by the best players possible in their best condition possible. We're already hearing in women's football, calendar's not right, want more rest between games. And so this is a really tricky one. I think I do believe the WSL needs to be bigger. I don't think 12 clubs is enough. I think the players should be playing more games. I would maybe look at bringing in another 2 clubs and bring the league to 14 teams. I wouldn't want to go any higher than 16 at any point. But to do that, you need 2, potentially 4 more clubs who are willing to pump in, you said there, budgets, you're looking at
2 to 4 million typically.
Or 4 million.
2 million for the just promoted normally, 1.5, 2 million.
So you need 4 clubs who are willing to put in between £2 and £4 million a season into their women's teams. And what we touched on it really, really briefly. Like, people didn't like the way that Man United got into the WSL, and it took away from established clubs. And when I talk about established, I'm looking at Reading, who were a real foundational team in the women's game here and in the last kind of 20 years. And also Doncaster Bells.
Yeah, I'll say it left a sour taste. They've still got a sour taste in their mouth. So
yeah, and Millwall Lionesses. The problem you have there is when you need £2 to £4 million a season being pumped into the women's game. Unfortunately, Millwall are in the Championship, not a particularly wealthy club. Doncaster, I'm sorry to say, I don't know what league they're in, and the men's team are in the Pyramid, but they are also outside the Premier League. And Reading, although were quite
they're massive issues recently, at the moment.
And now there's, the stadium's great, and people will remember being Premier League. They are really going through a tough time financially at the moment. And the owner, there's all sorts of issues there that I don't want to be sued, so we probably should go into. The men's team's struggling, so they cannot afford that. That is why Reading aren't funding the women's team to the same level as they were anymore. It's tough because I think if you're going to extend the team, money you need, you're going to upset some people. And whilst you you want promotion relegation. It's an integral part of the English football pyramid experience. So for men's football, England and Wales, because there are wealth teams inside the men's pyramid, there's a reason why franchises work really well in US sports, because you are investing in a sports franchise that you know is always going to be at that top table. And so it's really difficult. I do think the WSL needs to be bigger. I'd like to see more games.
Yeah.
How do you do that? I'm not sure.
I think you make a great point on the number of games. The men's Premier League complaint is it's too many games, where the women's Super League, I felt like they had a great balance where 22 games, they've got a nice balance where they have enough rest period. Now they increase it to 16 teams. That would take them to, at the moment it's 22 games a season. 16 teams would take them to 30 games a season. So then is it getting too much games? I think it is. So I think your point with maybe 2 teams, 3 teams at the most. But I think, yeah, if they're going to increase, they do 2 or 3 teams tops.
Yeah, I definitely would do 3. Because the championship's in this unusual situation at the moment where there's an odd number of teams in the league. And so if you go look at the women's championship at the moment, you've got some teams who have played 15 games, you've got some teams who have played 14 games, and I think there's one team in the league that's played 12 games, while other teams around have played 13, 14, 15. It doesn't work. There's a reason why we have an even amount of teams in the leagues. 3 is a definite no-no. I think the other thing as well you have to remember is that the talent pool is only so big. And so, like I said, I think what makes the Premier League so brilliant is the perception of anybody could beat anybody. Now, we know that that's not necessarily true, and that, you know, it's a pretty well-known fact that the wage bill is the most likely reflection of where you're going to finish in a league season. And that's from data from the past 25 years, 25, 30 years that has shown that. When in the women's game, when the talent pool is only so big and you need competitive games to make it an interesting competition, and we look around and we see, you know, Germa being brought into Chelsea, Walsh at Chelsea, Bronze at Chelsea, James at Chelsea. Man City had a big collection of players at one point, all playing the same squad. Jill Scott, Lucy Bronze again. I think people are already looking at it and going, well, there's a massive imbalance. And that comes with its own issues. How do you spread the talent around? Do you do a draft system? Do you do a salary cap? Well, that comes with its own problems, because then if you turn around and say to Chelsea, right, you have to release 2 of your players to a new franchise, or we need to spread this talent around the league, how does that affect their chances in European competition then as well? And so it's a really, really interesting problem to work at. I genuinely wish that was my full-time job, just to work on problems like this, but it's not.
I think
anybody from the FA or the WSL want to hit me up, I am a trained project manager, so I can do that. But in all seriousness, like it's really tricky, because it has to be a club that can afford to put £2 to £4 million a year into the club. So if we're being honest, it has to be a Premier League club. It has to be a Premier League club that isn't in danger of going down anytime soon. So I think that's going to automatically disqualify the 3 that are going to go down this season and the 3 that are going to come up next season. Because it's more than likely that whoever comes up this year will have to fight to keep their place. So what do you do? So we're looking for 16 teams who are always going to have that funding, and you can't guarantee that with promotion relegation. So the idea of saying, well, we just won't have promotion relegation for 4 years, but then you see it in the NFL, you see it in NBA with the draft system as well. You get to the end of the season, the franchise hasn't won a lot of games that year, and you go, well, would it really be that bad to have the first pick in the draft next season? What's the point? Let's just tank these games and we'll get the draft and we'll pick the best player out of the college system next year. And unfortunately, you do see that. It has been known to happen. It's not, I don't think I'm revealing any state secrets when I say that. And so you don't want that in football either. And so I think what will have to happen is they will have to go down that route. They want to extend the league. They're going to have to protect those teams for a certain amount of time to attract the outside investor. If I'm somebody with money, and somebody comes to me and says, I want you to invest in my football team, an investment is something that you expect a return on. And the only way you're going to get a return on that investment is if your team stays in the top league. And the best way you can guarantee that is by saying, well, yeah, I'll give you £2 million a year as a sponsorship. But if you get relegated, I'm going to have to pull out because there's no point my company name being on your shirt if you're playing in the championship, which isn't on TV very often. It's really
Yeah, I think it's probably inevitable. You're right. It's an opportunity. They do freeze the relegation, the top 2 leagues for 2 years. Then it will hopefully attract, investors and grow the game commercially. So yes, we shall see.
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, I wonder if maybe there needs to be some kind of, like out in Germany, they do like a licensing system, and you have to hit certain criteria to get a license to play in the Bundesliga. And I know for a fact from my time at a club who were outside the WSL and who are now inside the WSL, I saw the criteria that they had to hit to get that status, and it still wasn't quite enough on their initial bid. But luckily, organically, they were able to get to the WSL through competitive methods. But so there is criteria already there for WSL clubs, but maybe there needs to be some kind of licensing system that is every 5 years open to new applicants and also looking at clubs, like if a club's not doing enough to bring in bigger crowds to their stadium or to sell out their stadium, well, that goes against you on your licensing application. I don't know, maybe something like that where it is closed for a set period of time, but other teams can work off the pitch and structurally to be able to put a bid in. And then if a team, it's not a case of like, I've got a divine right to stay here, I've got the license. Like, if you're not doing the work to keep that going, to keep your club in a good place, you can lose your license after that. I don't know if that's maybe something.
They might have to look at it. I think the article was saying, The Guardian was saying that they're all offers on the table, so nothing's ruled out, and they were kind of thrown out. They mentioned some of the ideas that were thrown out, but I think it does seem like the reason they kind of especially emphasise the whole no one gets relegated for X amount of years is to start to ease people with that idea, because I think that is possibly the main route they're going to have to go down.
Well, yeah, and the BBC reported it as well today, and unsurprisingly, they said teams towards the bottom half of the WSL were really keen on that idea of no relegation. Well, of course they are, but the WSL teams and the Championship teams, you need to have a 2/3 majority to win the vote. So if you're, I don't know, if you're Bristol City down in the Championship at the moment, currently not in places, are you going to vote for no promotion for the next 4 years? You're probably not. And so it's going to be a really tricky thing. It's going to be a really tricky.
Yeah,
it's really tricky problem to solve. And like I said, you're going to end up upsetting people. And it's sad that Doncaster Bells and Millwall Lionesses are long gone, and it's sad that Reading have kind of slipped away. You appreciate what they've done, but football moves on. And as sad as it is that those teams aren't really around, and they're not around at the top level at least, unfortunately, they're just...
The other issue with on funding is that if they do increase it, they want to increase it to 16 teams, then the reality is they're going to have clubs going to have to invest in bigger squads. So that 2 to 4 million, those 1 or 2 clubs that are investing can get away with 1.78 million. They're not going to be able to, as they're going to have to invest in wages and bigger squads, because they won't be able to get away with 22 games. Now they've suddenly got to cater to 30 odd games, and suddenly you need a bigger squad rotation.
Yeah. And at the moment, I know the WSL has a soft salary cap, so 40% of your revenue can be spent on salary. I'm okay with the salary cap, but I think salary cap only works if there's a salary floor as well. What you don't want is, you don't want to get into a situation where a club owner goes, okay, so I can only spend 40%, but if there's no promotional relegation, it's really easy for club owners to go, well, actually, I'm only going to spend 20% of my revenue on salary because there's no way I'm being relegated, and maybe I can start making some profits. And I've got no problems with that. Clubs need to be self-sustaining. They can't just count on um, other parts of the club to fund them. I think we're in a situation at the moment where we're seeing in the men's Premier League PSR rules for sustainability rules. They are causing a squeeze to some clubs. Now, the good part of that is money spent in the women's game by those clubs do not count towards the
Offsets.
club's overall PSR results. So a club in the Premier League can spend £10 million in their women's team and it won't count as a loss financially. It won't count as a footballing loss. They can almost write that off. So if you wanted to, you could do that. But yeah, it's really tricky. I think what you don't want to do is go too far too quick. But yeah, like I said, the salary cap can work. I've got no problems with that. But what you don't want somebody spending way less than they need to because they're not going to get relegated and it then being a completely uncompetitive team. So for me, if we're saying at the moment 40% is the maximum they can spend, teams need to be told of that 40%, you have to spend a minimum as well. Like you have to have a competitive team. You have to be trying hard to make this competitive league because I believe that that's truly the best way of making the product as good as it could be. I think there are some other ways, and I'm not going to go into them all tonight, but I think first and foremost, if every team in the WSL spent the same amount of money and the talent was spread around and clubs were all within 10 points of each other, all 12 teams, that's a league you can...
It'd be a great league, wouldn't it?
Yeah. At the moment, what you're seeing are one or two clubs a season pulling away, and then another 2 or 3 clubs kind of battling out, and then the rest of them just, trying to survive.
This is why Newcastle are eager to get their women's team into top flight because they want to offset quite a bit. They're happy and eager to offset money into the women's team.
Well, when you've got as much money as they do, it's a drop in the ocean, isn't it? And that's great, but there also a part of me that goes, well, shouldn't they have to earn that rather than just write a check? And so it's finding that balance. And I think I'm not sure what the answer is, but what I do know is whatever answer they come up with, it's not going to make everybody happy.
No, I think that's a good point to end on. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we shall see you next time. And thank you and good night.